Hi, everyone, and welcome to PHAMCAST. I'm your host, Margaret Wallace Duffy, the founder and visionary of Preventative Health Awareness Month and movement that's been recognized by Health Canada. And I got to tell you, we are in the middle of year four, FAM 2026, and I'm just overwhelmed and humbled and incredibly grateful for the growth that this grassroots movement has seen in 4 short years. Not only are we recognized by Health Canada, it was talked about in the House of Commons floor last week. When I started this 4 years ago by myself, it has now grown to over 88 healthcare professionals from both allopathic and complementary medicine, organization, municipalities, different levels of government, and incredible individuals like the person I have with me tonight. This time last year, I had the privilege of meeting Dr. Vineeta Ahooja, who has become a ambassador. She's become a friend. She's become a mentor who I've learned so much from. Dr. Ahooja is a cardiologist, but she's also trained in functional medicine and Ayurvedic practitioner. And tonight, she's not going to wear a cardiology hat, but we are going to dive in deep to food is medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, and the reason being because it's Food is Medicine Week during FAM. And I can't think of a better person than to have this conversation with than you, Dr. Ahooja. Welcome.
Thank you, Marg. And as usual, I have to commend you on all the hard work you've done with FAM. It's growing so rapidly. FAM is a force, and it's bringing together all of the preventative, holistic practitioners, integrative health practitioners, so that we can share knowledge with everyone. Because we want people to be healthy. We want the world to have health.
You betcha. And we also want to change the legacy of healthcare. We got to switch the mindset from this pill for an ill, wait till people are broken and sick, to one that's more preventative, proactive, and patient empowered. And that's why conversations like this in this movement are critically important. So I think before we do anything, I think it's really important to dive in. It's really intriguing to a lot of people watching. Here we have a brilliant cardiologist who, I've got to say, not only have you helped my family, but many of my patients, but I'm also learning from your brilliant knowledge on the other side of the equation as well with Ayurvedic medicine. But what is that? Because a lot of people won't
Right.
even know what that is.
Yeah, I get that question a lot when you mention it. Some people have never heard of what is Ayurveda. It is actually the oldest medicine on the planet, dates back thousands of years. Ayur means life, Veda means knowledge when we look at the Sanskrit, the ancient Sanskrit language. So it's knowledge of life, really. That's what Ayurveda means. We have all kinds of different types of medicine. We have Chinese medicine, we've got naturopathic medicine, integrative health, which incorporates a lot of allopathic medicine, which is modern medicine. And we have Ayurveda, which preceded all of this, and yet we have lost touch with it. It's not just a phenomenon that lives in the East. It came out of that part of the world, but it actually is a science that can be anywhere in the world because it is exactly that. It's knowledge of life. So Ayurveda 101 is a loaded question, but how do we explain it in just a few minutes? So I'm going to give you the very grassroots basic concept of what is Ayurveda. So essentially, if you look at the universe, we have 5 gross elements. So we're not talking about the periodic table because that's very scientific and getting really into the nitty-gritty of different metals and elements and gases and things. We're not talking about the periodic table. So we're talking about 5 gross elements in the universe, and that's all that exists. So we have air, we have space, we have fire, water, and earth. And I'll challenge you, Mark, can you think of any other element outside of those 5 that exists?
No.
So everything that is matter or non-matter has to be a combination of these elements, right? Because that's all that exists. So similarly, similar to our foods and our plants and everything around us, even things that are man-made, they are a combination of these elements. Our bodies are a combination of elements. So at the time of conception, we are a certain combination of elements, if you will, in the genetic makeup of the embryo. And then as we go through pregnancy, we slightly deviate from that combination depending on certain illnesses during pregnancy, things that might happen at that time. And then when we're born, at that time of birth, we are a certain combination of elements. For most people, if we get back to what we were at least at birth, if the pregnancy was healthy, we can figure out what you were at birth and we can bring your combination back to what that was so that you will remain disease-free. Essentially, that is the concept, that as we go through life with environmental stresses, with emotional stressors, with different types of food, the wrong habits, we deviate from the original combination of elements. Any particular element can become disturbed and predominate and create disease. And so that brings us to why food is medicine. So just like our bodies, foods are made up of a combination of elements. And if you're able to really intuitively, and with the help of course, Ayurvedic practitioners or someone who's skilled in this, figure out what your combination of elements is, so to speak, dosha, we call them doshas, then you will know what foods to eat to balance those elements that are out of whack, so we can stave away disease. And that's why the whole focus of Ayurveda has always been that food is your medicine. And if you're eating things in the right proportions with the right balance for your particular dosha, then you should not need external medications.
So how do we figure out what our dosha is? I know that you're going to offer something at the end of our discussion tonight and moving forward when your new website launches, and we're so excited about that. But how do we know what our dosha is?
Great question. So it's a very ancient science again. It incorporates all the features that we use in modern medicine, which is a good history taking, asking questions about, how you were as a child, how you were as you got older, what was your mood like, what was your temperament, what was your diet like, how were your intestinal functions, what was your bowel movement, did you have a voracious appetite, or were you kind of nitpicky about food? All these questions are in the history, and it gives us an idea not just of the personality, but of the general tendencies of the physical body. And that moves us from history into physical. So then when we actually see somebody, we can examine them. We can do a pulse reading, and through the pulse reading, we can actually assess what dosha you are. It's a much deeper science when you get into it, but on the very basic level, there are 3 positions of your pulse. So in cardiology, we're looking at rate, rhythm, character, and we can assess valves and heart thickness and other things through the pulse. But in Ayurveda, it's a very different pulse. It's looking again at the combination of elements, and there are characteristic features of the pulse that will tell you not only what you were at birth, but what you are in this moment of time. So that's how we know, and it takes quite a bit of skill and training to learn how to read that pulse. But once you can kind of get a sense of that, again with the help of a practitioner, and many of this knowledge you can gain on your own aside from the pulse, just through understanding your history and understanding your body makeup, what kind of features you have, how your physical body is, will tell you a lot about these combinations. So that is kind of how we assess things. And then going even a step further, then when we look at the deviations, we get into how you react to certain herbs, and that also helps support the diagnosis, similar to how we use imaging. Okay, we think you have appendicitis, but now we're going to check with a CT scan. Similarly in Ayurveda, well, we think you're a Pitta dosha, but we're going to check. Let's see how you respond to this. And then we can kind of gain confidence in the fact that the pulse reading was correct, the history is correct, and now we really have a better sense.
So you just made reference to a particular dosha. Can you just give us a little bit of a 101 about what are those doshas and what someone that is that, what are their characteristics and what can they think of? Because I know you
Sure.
asked me, and it's really intriguing and interesting and quite frankly, bang on in a lot of ways. And that can inform, which we're going to talk in a moment, inform what we do with our nutrition, how, and listening to the way food makes us feel. Because when
Absolutely.
we do that, wow, is it powerful. But a lot of people in this day and age, we're just shoveling food in our mouth on the go. It's not healthy food.
Yeah.
It's
Wrong.
wrong. It's all wrong. And
Yeah.
yet there's a science to it. So let's talk about what those different doshas are and what that means to the person.
Exactly, Mark. It is a science. So this is not hocus pocus. This is real. If you look at the 5 elements, now in Ayurveda, to make it simplified and to understand better, because this is how it functions in our physical body, we've broken it down into 3 doshas. So each dosha is a combination of 2 elements to make it easier to understand how the elements function together. So for instance, we've got something called vata, which is a combination of air and space. We've got a pitta dosha, which is a combination of fire and water. And we've got a kapha dosha, which is a combination of earth and water. So now we can be any combination of these doshas, but you usually have one that predominates. So for instance, a person who is a high pitta dosha, they have a lot of pitta in their body. They have a lot of fire and water in their body. So fiery and oily and watery. So we think of things now, fire, it's hard to understand, in the beginning when you're first getting used to these concepts, what that actually means. But think of fire as everything that moves in your body, the metabolism, the digestive energy, the heat, because movement creates heat. It creates fire. It's no different than the heat of the sun, the heat of the fire. So movement is creating that hot energy. So things like inflammation that are hot, redness on the skin, heartburn, reflux, intestinal abnormality, digestive fire's gone way too hot. If you're really angry, you see people where they have high blood pressure, the face gets really hot. That's a fire element. That's increasing heat in one part of the body. Menopause, the hot flashes, when you get this really dry, hot quality. The dryness is something else, but the hot quality is part of that pitta element that is a lot higher during menopause. So that's just an example of how the one dosha. But now if you're a combination of these doshas, you'll be, say, your first thing out of balance is the fire, but then you may also have the vata quality, which is air and space. So you may also have some anxiety, which is a lot of movement. Air and space is all flowy and movement. So you may have things where tangential thoughts of the mind and you're overthinking everything and anxious and jittery or tremors, shakes, all those things are in the airspace quality. So that's kind of a very basic kind of understanding of the elements. And do you have any questions about that, Mark, before I
love it. I think it would be really great for everybody listening. And getting to know me and as a person and as a professional and some of my health history, you predicted what I would be. Predicted. You didn't predict. You're very skilled at this. But then I took, a test, a quiz that you gave me, and you were bang on. So what did you say I was? And let's kind of explain it from that perspective, because I think that can give some, because then we're going to talk about food as medicine. You gave me some real tangible things that I could think about that would help to fuel my body. Food that's medicine for me. It's like it's being customized for
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know if we'll have enough time to talk about it, but we can go way deep into food in this element, in talking about the elements. But when you did the quiz, so the quiz is just a history that we would take from a patient without examining you, right? So the quiz basically asks you all those questions that will lead us to an understanding of what that element predominance is for you. Things like, how is your mood? How is your digestion? How did you feel yesterday? What is happening? Are your habits regular? Are they irregular? All those things lead us to what is the element mix up that you have. So your predominance is pitta, and that's kind of why I was describing it. And your second one would be vata, just as we described. So the pitta would be the major one, but you've been quite in balance. And so that's really good. And if you have foods that are very supportive to the pitta so that it doesn't become exaggerated, those things would be cooling. And for your second element, which is vata, air and space, you need things that are grounding. So think about if you have a certain element that's out of proportion, say fire, you think about all the things that would douse a fire. You want things to be cooling and soothing to bring that fire down. If you have a predominance of air and space, you want things to be grounding, like the earth. You want an earthy quality. So you're going to choose foods that have a very grounding nature, the kapha nature, which is that third dosha, right? So whenever we are eating to balance our doshas, we're going to choose foods of the opposite quality so that we can bring things down. So to give you an example, and one of my Ayurveda teacher is Dr. Ishmat Nathani. I think she's probably going to be watching today. But she gave this beautiful example, and it was of a plant called jadamansi. So jadamansi is a rare herb that is on its way to extinction. Hopefully not, because people are now preserving it and growing it in greenhouses. But it's a plant that survives in the vast Himalayan mountains where it's all open space. It's just air and space. There's not a lot of earth around. I mean, there's a lot of earth, but there's not a lot of green and lush. It's just a vast open space of rock, right? So in order to survive that environment, that plant has to be so grounded in that, right? It has to have that kapha element, the earth element has to be so dense. So that plant, if you just take the essential oil, and let's say you're feeling very anxious and very jittery, and you just rub the essential oil on your temples, it immediately brings you down. It immediately calms your nerves without even consuming it, because the property of grounding is so strong.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that is just one example of how plants work on us. And in the world, plants are our medicine, and they're created in that way to balance us when we need something and we need to bring ourselves back to the dosha combination that we were at in childhood or at birth, then we can reach for those things to aid us. And if we're eating properly in the right proportions, then things stay balanced. If we're eating erratically, like you said, we're in a busy restaurant. My biggest pet peeve is when we go out to dinner with our friends and the restaurant is insanely noisy. Everybody's talking while they're eating, speaking really loud because they can't hear each other. That is exactly the wrong environment to be able to digest your food. Digestion is like a spiritual process. That food is being converted into a human being, So you don't want all these distractions while your body is doing this intelligent process and trying to put things in the cells in the right place. So you need a common conscientious environment to really digest well.
So when we talk about actual foods, because I always want to be able to have people walk away from everything we do in and be able to put it into action in their lives. So for me, I need some cooling foods. What are some examples of cooling foods and then grounding foods?
Yeah. So think of for instance, cucumbers, right? Cucumbers are incredibly cooling, and so are rose petals, by the way. If you make a rose tea, you feel that coolness going through your peppermint, mint leaves. When people drink a mint tea when they're feeling like a little burning in the belly, that just cools that digestive fire so well. Those are three great examples of things that can settle down an aggravated pitta or fire element.
All right. And then when you talked about needing grounding elements, so we're talking
So,
about.
for instance, in the fall, think about the seasons too, because the seasons have their own element combination. So, when you think of fall and leaves blowing and really windy and cold and dry, it's all air and space. It's air movement and space, and it's getting colder and dry. So, you need foods that are very grounding. And what naturally grows in the fall every year, what naturally grows is the pumpkins and root vegetables, right? And so we make these hearty grounding stews of root vegetables. And you can add nutmeg, which is an herb that is grounding and warm. Certain spices also have that grounding quality. So all of these plants have their own intelligence, and they grow at that time of the year when our bodies need them the most, and functioning in that environment, which is opposite to what they are. So that's another way to kind of search for things that might be right for the season.
Right. And then also thinking about, and it's really interesting because I'm pretty in tune with my body. I've had a lot of, I've talked about this openly, and we've had this conversation. I've had bowel obstructions. My digestive system has been. I've had a fecal transplant. My gut biome has been through a lot. But
Yeah.
it's really interesting if I really listen, and I know when things feel.
Out of whack, right?
Yeah. And when foods fuel me versus cause damage. But people don't take time to really pay attention to what is nourishing, listening to their bodies. And this is where I get excited about as a massage therapist, that literally paying attention to our body in a way so that it's the best intelligence, but we just tend to ignore it and want others to figure it out. We do have to listen, don't we?
Yes, absolutely. In the beginning, it's very tough to really understand what your dosha is, but if you get expert help and you're able to figure it out, you can work with that. In the meantime, a simple fix for everybody, this would work for everybody, is to look at the 6 rasas. We call them shad rasas, which is 6 tastes. Rasa means taste, and it's when the food first hits your tongue, what is the taste? What is the quality? So there are 6 rasas. It's sweet, salty, sour, pungent, bitter, and astringent. And each of these 6 tastes have, again, a certain combination of 2 elements, right? For instance, sweet is going to be like, so fire is going to be, you're going to have that, sorry, let me go back. Sour is going to be earth and fire, right? Your sweet taste is earth and water. So for instance, if you have an aggravated fire element, you want to do the opposite of that. So you're going to bring things that are not just grounding but cooling also. So the earth and water of a sweet fruit is again very cooling for a fire element. But in those 6 tastes, if you find those 6 tastes in your foods and you incorporate all of that in your plate, and you have all 6 rasas, then you're balancing all the doshas simultaneously. And if you know that one particular element is slightly out of whack, then you just adjust the proportions of that taste in your meal to calm that element, right? So, and if you're incorporating all 6, your body generally will remain balanced, and then you just tweak it as you go. You add a little bit more of something that's more grounding, or you add a little bit more of something that's more cooling, depending on what state you're in.
So what if you have, because there's certain things like, for example, a bitter taste. Some people really love more bitter type taste. What does it mean when you don't? Like, I have a real aversion to bitter things.
Well, so a bitter taste is all air and space. It's air and ether, right? So things like bitter melon or neem or turmeric. So many people don't like the bitter element because I think, there is this tendency, especially in North America, air and ether is vata. It's that movement element. And North America, we have such a fast-paced life. Schedules are hectic. The weather is cold. It's dry for 9 months of the year. So we're already aggravated on the vata side. And that is the exact element that bitter is. Bitter is air and ether. So the body's not craving that. The body's constantly, especially in winter, craving like more of a grounding feeling, So that may be part of it. And so you're not alone in that.
Right,
but
right.
but there are individuals who love a bitter taste, and maybe that's because they have too much of the other elements and they need that air and space to balance them. They have too much earth, or they have too much water element, and they need some dryness.
It's so intriguing. And it seems, what I love about this, we're having this conversation with a cardiologist. And what got you into,
Ayurveda.
yeah,
So I'm half South Indian and half North Indian, and my mom is from the southern part of India, which is Kerala. And many of the exotic herbs obviously grow in Kerala, because it's such a tropical, amazing environment, like other parts of the world as well. But my mom has been in Canada for many years, but my mom's sister, anytime we would visit her when I was a child, she would just, if we needed to eat something or somebody was sick, she would literally go into her backyard and make a concoction of something. So her whole life was based on Ayurveda. Her whole life was an understanding of these herbs. I remember having typhoid fever when I went to India the first time. I was 7 or 8 years old, and it was crazy. I had such a high fever. I was sick for days, couldn't figure out what to do. My mom was terrified. So we went to my mom's sister's house, and she's like, "Oh, 1 second, I'll be right back." She went to her backyard. She brought back this yogurt and this, the seeds of pomegranate and the skin of the pomegranate. She blended that, mixed it into the yogurt with a few other herbs. I don't know now what they are. I couldn't recall. And I was better in 4 hours. The diarrhea had stopped, fever started coming down, and I was just, chilling like a villain. I was great. So I'm like, what is this concoction that you gave me? But very powerful stuff. I'm not saying it can cure everything, but I have seen people walk out of early stages cancers, because cancer, what is it? It's a density of tissue that's overgrowing. So it's a combination of that fire element that's overproducing, but it's kapha, it's earth, it's more tissue, it's more physical matter. So now if you do things that are going to oppose that, you can bring down the burden, right? So it's really, really fascinating.
Our bodies are such incredible. It's intriguing to me. And I think that's why I've always had such a passion for understanding, because you always can learn about the human body and the ability for us to heal ourselves with the right environment, with the right tools, with
Yeah.
the right mindset. And this is why I love that balance of conventional and complementary medicine, and working together, and food being such a foundational piece of that. And we're literally living in a world where a lot of us are eating, I don't know what it is, frankenfood. It's ultra processed.
Don't
It's
get me started. It's driving me crazy that we can't reach for good food when we need it. We're driving to work, and what do you see? You see a Tim Hortons and a Starbucks, and everything loaded with, not to say all the brand. I don't want to be blasphemy towards any of the brands, but you know what I mean. I just mean fast food. So it's not that we'd like to aim for perfection, but it is really challenging, because you need to have something called dinacharya, which is a routine of your daily activities, which is not just the food, but it's the way you live your life. It's the environments that you're in. It's, not being caught up in all the stuff. And of course, that's hard. We all have jobs. We all have mortgages to pay. You have leases to, rent to pay, and you've got bills to pay. We've got work to do, and we're out in the community. But even if we can't come close to perfection, we can do the best that we can with the resources that we have, which means choose organic, understand your imbalances, really try to go deeper and understand what is ailing you and where did it come from? Where did it start? Because it's not just the physical side, it's the mental and emotional side that also is in that elemental balance. So when we start to learn about ourselves, actually you learn a lot of Ayurveda just through understanding yourself.
I love that.
And it's the knowledge of life. That's what it's called, the knowledge of life.
I love that. And what I love about it is the empowerment piece as well, working in collaboration with somebody, like you said, that's trained, but that it allows you to listen and to learn about your own body, your own life, and therefore you can get into the driver's seat of your health and make those changes. And powerful ones with simple things. I think sometimes in the modern world and society, we've really complicated things a great deal. And
Yeah.
and getting back to the basics of with whole foods and eating locally and balancing and listening to our bodies. And as you said, being in community, but chewing our food. And I mean, all of these things seem so simple, but they're
And even following seasonal patterns, even knowing what to do as summer shifts to fall, what you need to do during that time to help your body detox and transition the seasons. It's not just simply, okay, today's summer, tomorrow's fall, I'll go through it. But things that you can do to support your health during that transition so there's less chance of flus and colds and boost your immunity, other things that we can do. It's really a knowledge of your life. It's a knowledge of yourself and building that slowly over time. It doesn't happen overnight. It's not easy, but it's something that everybody can try to learn to do and focus on more if you want to really have that health span.
I love that. And I know we could dive in so much deeper, and we're going to be doing more. And we've also talked about doing some retreats. So there's that coming. And you've got a website launching where people are also going to be able to see you separate from your cardiology practice as well. We're going to make sure we keep people abreast of that so that they can take that quiz. And of course,
Great.
we're talking about, creating a retreat together, which I think would be amazing to really dive deeper into this. I really appreciate your time today.
My pleasure, Mark. Thank you for inviting me. And like I said, we just really grazed the surface. And I think we could really get into the rasas and the tastes at another session because I think that is something great for everybody to know about their foods. But again, thanks for having me, and look forward to
Yes.
meeting again.
You know what? That's our call to action for anybody watching. Make sure you put something in the comments, share this video, and let us know. Perhaps maybe we even do a more extended workshop. Maybe it's even in person. It doesn't have to just be online, or it could be online and having a live webinar. Pretty soon, our Become the CEO of Your Health community is going to be launching. And in that, we can have live webinars where we're going to dive in deeper, or a series of webinars, which I think Dr. Ahooja, you would be an incredible person to have lead that. Because as you said, there's so many areas we could dive deeper. Tonight, we just wanted to give just a 101 opening to pique the curiosity of what is Ayurveda and how it can really help improve our health span. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
All right, everybody, stay tuned. There's lots more coming here on PHAMCAST. And of course, Preventative Health Movement happens all February, but it doesn't stop then. As soon as March hits, this movement continues because it's not just about awareness campaign. It's about putting those tools into action and helping you become the CEO of your health. Until next time, stay well.